Alright, here I am recording my audio under my blanket. Sounds good? Great, here we go. Today, I'm gonna talk about how to create a Storytime animation channel because, well, you're obviously here for that reason, right? For aspiring animators that are looking to create their very own Storytime channels, I'd say it's a pretty interesting and fun style of animation. So here I am, trying to share what I know with you guys. If you haven't done so yet, I'd say the first thing to do is to create your YouTube channel name. You could use your real name. For example, it's Alex Clark, although I don't know if that's his real name. Or you could add the animation word to your name, like Jaiden, aka Jaiden Animations. That way, people would recognize that you're an animation channel right from the get-go. Take mine for example. My name is Weng, and well, I wanted to create wholesome stuff, so Weng plus some and I got Wengsome. Bottom line, figure out the name that you're comfortable with as long as you're not gonna regret it later on. Hey kid, what's your channel name?
XX69 Dragon of the Dead 69XX.
What the f? Don't choose names like that. When you think of Storytime animations, I'm pretty sure the top of the mind thing is the character. I mean, most of the videos you see feature the titular character talking on screen to you, so it's gotta be relatable. And there's basically two ways to approach this. First, you can create a character that resembles you. Most of the Storytime animators I've seen have a character that resembles them. I mean, even for my one, it's based off how I look in real, with silky long hair and so on. Okay, you don't even have to go the human way. Some Storytime animators create animal-like avatars or marshmallow-like figures, like the ever so popular James, the odd ones out. Even a tofu? There's so many possibilities, and ultimately, just as how you chose a name, pick something that you feel can best express your emotions and tell your story the way you want it to. So now you're ready to get started. Before you dive into the scripting process, you might want to identify what your big idea is gonna be. For Storytime animations, there are several established topics or styles you can consider. Let's look at some of the common tropes. A life event? A funny skit? Educational topics? Dumb stuff? Wait, dumb stuff? Might want to stay away from that. There's plenty to talk about within the other three. Once you've identified the type of style you want to go for, it's time to work on the script. Creating a script may seem simple at first, but no, it's one of the hardest part of the entire process. I mean, let's say you want to create your Storytime video on a certain moment of your life. You need to establish a structure that'll keep the viewers engaged throughout your narration. Of course, you can just jump in and freestyle your way through, but that might end up looking and sounding more like a vlog. You gotta have an opener, the meat of the story, and a closer. Most importantly, it's gotta make sense. Make sense? And with scripting, it'll make it easier for you to establish what you want to say. When you have the outline and structure to your story, it's easier for you to enact and also easier for the viewers to relate. Think like a storybook or a novel. Those have pretty solid structures and not all over the place like some weird magazine. There are plenty of tools for you to write your script on. I personally use Google Docs because it's well accessible at all times and easy to manage. I then break it down into an introduction, several paragraphs with the story, and end it with closing thoughts. Once the story is established, I dive in a little deeper to format the speech and the actions my character or other characters perform. Something like bold words or brackets to show what part requires a specific animation style, be it lip syncing or some other animated sequence. For any dialogue, I just use the inverted commas to indicate these are speech lines. If you're wondering how and when you should write scripts, I personally will tell you, write your dang scripts the second it hits you. I totally mean it. Whenever you see something or hear something story-worthy, just write it down. A lot of my scripts are written in my phone and my notes app. Whenever that golden idea pops up in my head, I make bullet points in my notes app, which then I transfer back to my Google Docs when I'm back on my computer. I even write scripts when I'm using the toilet.
Nah, I'm just kidding. Oh my god.
You can write it when you're at home, at school, while you're eating, or whenever, as long as you're not doing something else that's more important. Some animators that I know skip this step entirely. While I'm not sure why, I kinda guess that they're very experienced or they just animate whatever comes to mind instead of the traditional methods. As you've already written your script, you'll now need to draw it out on a board, aka the storyboarding. One thing I've got to remind you guys is during the storyboarding stage, try not to draw anything in detail. It really should just be simple sketches or scams that outline the story and give you a visualization of how the animation is gonna flow. Remember that you're gonna redraw everything anyway, so don't waste time on perfecting simple things. For storyboarding tools, you can either do it on paper, on a book, on your iPad, computer. It doesn't matter as long as you're comfortable with it. Some animators even use post-it notes for their boards. Again, for the storyboarding stage, some animators do skip it entirely, so it really is up to you. By planning these ahead, it will save you time when you're creating your illustrations and animations. Some of the experiences I have with storyboarding is that it helps me detect errors in my script. It gives me an overall view of the flow and pacing. It makes me look like a professional director, and I kid you not, I always get the feeling I am like one whenever I do my storyboarding. So, I highly recommend you go through the storyboarding process, as it just makes things so much easier. Voiceover sessions are one of the most important parts, if not the most important part of the video. In this age of YouTube, a lot of people have commented how voice and audio would make or break the video. If your visuals are stunning, but your audio sucks, then well, people are gonna click off, and that sucks. Also, since Storytime animations feature your characters and not your actual face, you've got to do a pretty good job on voicing the emotions. Of course, some really talented Storytime animators can give their characters great facial or body expressions, whereas some others focus more on their charm and voice to carry the characters. Whenever you're preparing for your VO, get into the mindset of the story you're about to enact. If it's based on a real-life experience, think about it and get into that mood before you record. If you're doing a skit, you've gotta show energy. If your character is going to say, "Hey you, move it," it will sound much better than saying, "Hey you, move." The key is getting into the act. For recording, equipment is basically whatever microphone you have at your disposal. Great microphones do make a difference, but it doesn't mean you have to spend $600 on top tier mics when you're starting out. At the beginning, we all suck. I mean, not literally, but yeah, we all make mistakes and learn as we go along. If you have a great mic, good for you. Otherwise, any headset or even your handphone can be used as your recording equipment when you're starting out. One question that I often get is, how do I make myself sound better? Or, is there any software to generate voice? I'm gonna tell you guys that A, don't worry about your voice because it's all in your head. Scientifically, we hear our voices in our head differently than what others hear. You might think your voice is bad, but in reality, either it's not that bad as you think or no one cares. And B, don't use softwares like text-to-speech even if you have seen some people use it before. If you're looking to make Storytime animations, your audience will want to connect with you and not some robotic voice. It turns people off, so just don't. For recording software, I like to use Audacity because it's free and really has all the necessary features I need for my audio. There are plenty of tutorials on YouTube, so there's really no excuse in not knowing how to use it. One thing that I had to learn the hard way is that nobody really told me how to adjust my voice at the beginning. By that, I mean after recording your voice and VO, you can perform some sound treatment with Audacity to make your voice sound even better. Here's an example of raw audio. While I'm not sure why, I kinda guess that they're very experienced or they just animate whatever comes to mind instead of the traditional methods. Now if you highlight that part of the audio track, click on Effect, go to Graphic EQ and apply an equalizer preset to it, here's how it's gonna sound. While I'm not sure why, I kinda guess that they're very experienced or they just animate whatever comes to mind instead of the traditional methods. See the difference? I mean, hear the difference? One more thing you can do is go to Effect, go to Bass and Treble, and apply a little bit bass to make your sound fuller. While I'm not sure why, I kinda guess that they're very experienced or they just animate whatever comes to mind instead of the traditional methods. So yeah, these are the basic things you can do in Audacity to make yourself sound better. Things like noise reduction, extra bass, equalizing your voice and compression all go a long way in helping you sound better. Another tip for you guys is while recording VO, nothing beats raw recording in quiet places. Software can reduce noise, but if your initial audio is so noisy to begin with, no amount of software editing will make it sound better compared to a decent and quiet raw audio. For beginners, you can literally do it in your closet. Some other record under the thick comforters or blankets. That seems pretty stuffy and hot to me though, I'm just saying. So just for comparison, I'm gonna show you recording in under my blanket. Alright, here I am recording my audio under my blanket. Sounds good? Great, here we go. Versus recording in a normal room.
Okay, audio check. Normal, untreated room. Check 1, 2, 3.
You can tell the difference, right? So overall, these are tips that you definitely get better over time. Just try to get the best sounding you can right from the get-go with whatever you have. Similar to recording, you can use Audacity or any other audio software for editing. There are a couple of great ones and paid ones, but for this tutorial, I'm just gonna stick to Audacity because it's free! Need I say more? In Audacity, first things first is to remove the unwanted background noise. So select the dead part or quiet part of the raw audio and go to noise reduction. Then click on the get noise profile. Highlight your whole track again, Command A for Mac, Control A for PC, and apply noise reduction again. You should be able to tell the difference before and after once you play it back. Second, look at your track and remove those dead parts, so it doesn't sound too boring or there's too many dead parts in the audio or video. After that, you can choose to further remove stuff like breathing noises or S's, pops forward with P and B's, but those are a little more advanced and for the sake of this video, we're just focusing on the basics. Some people like to use this software called Levelator to normalize the sound. What it basically does is it makes the highs and lows of your audio equal so people don't have to keep adjusting their volumes when you get too loud or too soft. Since it's free, I'll just recommend it as well, and links to the download are down in the description below. The next step is the most daunting part for some. Why I say so is because some animators feel that this is the most tedious part of the process. Personally, I enjoy the animation part because for me, the illustration part is much tougher. Different animators have different approaches to their animations. For me, I do my illustrations first on Adobe Illustrator, and then I import it into Adobe Flash, which is now known as Adobe Animate, and then I do my animations. There are so many animation softwares out there. Although I mentioned Adobe as the one I use, there is a catch to it. Adobe is rather pricey, and if you're looking for free animation software, this probably isn't the best to start off with. So before the animation begins, you'll need to draw out all of your frames. A good and free program that some animators use is this software called Krita. Krita has a lot of great features, and while I'm not gonna go in depth about it, let's just say that it's one of the most widely used art software by casuals and professionals. Go for it. Before I move on to the next part, it's worth mentioning that having a drawing pen and a tablet does help with illustrations and animations. If you don't have one, fret not. You still can use your mouse or the traditional way of drawing on paper. Tools are meant to be convenient, but it doesn't mean that you can't do your stuff if you don't have them. Be innovative. Most animators use a frame rate of 24 FPS and that is good enough. The higher it is, the more realistic the animation looks, but for Storytime animations, 24 is really good enough, so let's just keep it at that. I would recommend a size of 1920x1080 HD. You don't have to go above that. 4K totally isn't necessary, so yeah, Full HD it is. Once you're in your working space, you can import your frames. Like I mentioned earlier, mine was done in Adobe Illustrator, so just let me import my cat here. And I'm gonna animate him talking shit to me because that's what he does anyway. If you've seen my animations, I like to create this shaking effect as if he's dramatically talking to me. So I create a graphic symbol where I add a keyframe, 2 frames in, and move the graphic up a little by nudging it up. Once I exit, I can test on the timeline and you'll see it shaking. Next, I apply the VO to a keyframe and I add his mouth to a new keyframe. I select it and go to the object, click on the lip sync feature and select the audio file on the timeline. Notice that I have all these visemes set up already. For those who are interested in lip sync, you can set up this mouth visemes by drawing each mouth shape according to the letter group your mouth pronounces. Well, that reminds me, I ought to create an animation video tutorial on how to lip sync. After I play it back and I'm happy with my animation, I then export it. And voila! There's the basic animation of my trash talking cat. For my character, it's the same. I have a set of poses stored in my library because redrawing them every single time is a waste of good time. And there you have the basic process of animation. To wrap things up, after your basic animation is done, you can further use some other video editing software like DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Premiere Pro to further enhance your video with sound effects or audio. For beginners, you can hit up the YouTube audio library and search for some tracks that fit the mood and feel of your video. I can't say for sure because only you would know what kind of audio is best. Just make sure it's copyright free or royalty free as you really don't want to get hit by copyright claims or strikes. Ooh. And as long as you're creating Storytime animations for YouTube, the YouTube audio library tracks is free to use at your disposal. Open up the software of your choice, throw your animation in, and the audio track you have downloaded. I like to keep my audio at a -15 to 18 decibels so that it's not too loud, and I test if my voice sounds good over the background music. Sometimes I might adjust my voice a little bit louder but not too loud. Most of the video software have an audio indicator to show if your voice is clipping, so I keep it within the -12 to -6 range. After you're happy with your edits here, just export the video and you're done. I hope you've enjoyed the video up to this point and there are just a couple of steps to go. After your video is done, you need to spend a little bit time on creating a great thumbnail and also working on the title and description of your video. For thumbnails, you can use the free platform Canva or any graphic design software like Photoshop. Again, it's Adobe, I know. So for Storytime animations, I'm not diving into the creative aspect here, but for a basic guideline, create a HD size 1280x720, import your character into the frame, and give it an eye-catching title on the left or right or center, it's up to you. I'd recommend left or right for visual balance, and don't use any clickbaity type of titles. Just keep it relative to what your video is about. After that, export the file as a JPEG and we're all good. The final step involves uploading your video. Best practices is to make sure your video file is labeled the same name as your video title. Then yeah, you fill in your title and description, add in any links or credentials needed, and make sure you fill in a proper description with keywords related to your video. Don't do keyword stuffing. It'll get you into trouble, and be natural as you can with writing the description. Lastly, add some tags related to the video and give the video subtitles if you can. Subtitles are great for Storytime animations. It helps viewers understand you better in case you have a heavy accent or trouble with pronunciation. And that's it for this video. Hope you found this video helpful for your journey into Storytime animation, and if you did, drop a little subscribe and a like because I like you too. Oh dang it, that came out so lame. Anyway, let me know if you'd like to see more tutorials and I'll see you in the next one, my bears.